Hello everyone! So with the past videos talking about console customizations, I bet that many of you got excited to try these modifications, but have no idea where to start. So in this video I'm making a soldering tutorial, so that you can start practicing safely before diving into your consoles. Soldering in electronic components is a huge world with lots of options and tools. In this tutorial, I'll try to keep it very basic for easy understanding. So when you think about soldering, you immediately think that you will only need a soldering iron and solder wire, right? Wrong. These are indeed the main components, but you will definitely need additional tools for doing the job. So for the basic kit, you will need a soldering iron. Well, you can find many types of soldering irons in the market. Some of them have removable tips, and others you can adjust the temperature. If you go with a default soldering iron, I will recommend a 30 watts iron, as the temperature is usually the perfect for small electronic devices. Keep in mind that if you have a soldering iron with more watts, it will heat more and possibly damage the board components. Some solder wire, and my recommendation for this is just to avoid bad quality brands, as this will make your job harder. Just ask in your electronics shop for a good quality solder wire. Next one is Flux. Flux is also available in all kinds, syringes, pastes and pens. Just stick with the regular paste format. What Flux does? Well, according to Wikipedia, Flux serves to remove oxidized metal from the surfaces to be soldered, seals out air, and facilitates amalgamation. But in my way of explaining it, I'd say that Flux is like the butter of soldering. When you are soldering anything, you'll want to have Flux. Imagine eating a raw bread. Not the best experience, right? Now imagine the same bread with a good layer of butter and heat it on the frying pan. Yeah, that's the difference of using Flux. Flux makes the solder flow to the components more easily. It facilitates melting of the solder too, as it will help transfer the heat from the soldering iron more effectively, and it also protects the board. And believe me, you won't want to destroy your 30-year-old Sega Genesis board traces just because you didn't use Flux. So buy Flux. These are the main components needed to solder, but what if you do something wrong? You'll need to desolder stuff. So you'll need a desoldering pump. The way this works is when you melt the solder, you can position it and press a button to suck the solder out of the board. This is pretty easy and quick, and you can use it again many times. Another option is Dessoldering Braid. Usually Dessoldering Braid is more recommended to clean up excess solder, as it works by extracting the excess solder from the components when you melt it with the soldering iron, and once the braid is full of solder, you'll need to cut it and use another clean piece. And lastly, my favorite is the low melt solder. This is like regular solder, but it has a low melting point, meaning it will stay melted for a longer period of time, so you can apply the low melt solder, remove the component, and then clean up everything with the Dessoldering Braid or the soldering pump. And to finish our starter soldering kit, you'll need isopropyl alcohol for cleaning any flux residue or oxidation from the board. Also grab some safety glasses. While it is pretty safe to solder from a distance, when you are melting the solder, small drops can fly from the melting solder and boiling flux, and it would be pretty bad if one of these drops would fly straight to your eyes.
That's no good.
Another safety advice is that when you start soldering anything, you should position a fan to blow away the fumes from the solder, as breathing these fumes can be hazardous. Okay, so you got the tools and are ready to start practicing, but you'll need some training dummy in order to practice and not mess anything up, right? So my advice is that you grab some broken electronics from your house. I bet that you have an old drawer full of broken computer mouses somewhere in your house, right? Or maybe a broken gamepad. Personally, I have a drawer full of broken mice, and some of them have bad scrolling wheels, others are having double click issues. In any case, they work perfectly for my practice sessions. Changing the switches is the best practice you can have. They are simple components and pretty easy to desolder and replace. And it will just feel good that you have that old mouse running perfectly again. First we'll start with this mouse. Once disassembled, you can get to the main board, and you should start by applying flux to the soldered points. Make sure it's all covered. And here's one mistake I made. I didn't tape this board, so the pump didn't get attached firmly to the board and it couldn't desolder properly. So I went ahead and taped it again, and now you can see that the soldering, it's not hardening in a good way. It's just like the video where I show bad solder. When the solder hardens this way, it's bad solder. So I added some new solder to mix it together, and you will already see that the solder gets shinier when I add new solder. This way it will make the solder easier to remove. You may need to use the pump many times until it's completely removed. Doing the same on the other point. Once you've completely removed the solder from the board, you can take it out and remove the switch and clean everything with isopropyl alcohol to remove the excess flux. Then apply the new switch. And when you are resoldering, you just need a tiny bit of flux. That's because the soldering wire already has flux inside of it, so you just need a tiny bit to solder it again. You can see how the flux helps the solder to stick to the desired terminal more easily. And once again, after you're soldering the points, you can clean the excess with isopropyl alcohol. Also check the switch to see if it's well secured. And it's done. To clean the soldering iron, you should use the soldering brass or the sponge. I didn't have any of those, so I just used some wet toilet paper. You should clean it from all sides to remove the impurities and oxidation. And leave the tip coated in solder because that will protect the tip from oxidation on the metal. This was the first part of my tutorial, and it's enough for you to start practicing your soldering skills. If you are underage, make sure to practice under the supervision of your parents and be careful with the soldering iron. In the next part, I'm gonna show some other tools and teach more techniques to further improve your skills. See you next time!